We'll now move on to the demonstration of the supply-based recovery cockpit. Now, the version I'm going to take you through today is equivalent to what we would usually build in our 8 to 12 week long engagements using off-the-shelf software such as Power BI or Tableau. Now, this version of the tool is perfect for when it's critical to get to that insight view on your supply base as soon as possible to really start mitigating that risk and driving actions and decisions within your team. Now, typically, these tools will continue to develop over time, and some clients will choose to migrate them into more advanced software packages. So we'll run through a few of the key elements within the tool to give you a flavor of some of the capabilities we typically develop. So this is the supplier risk screen and lots of different analytic capabilities, but today we'll take you through the short-term supplier assessment. So what you see here is a typical landing page that you would want to view on a daily or weekly basis, depending on what your usual cadence looks like. Now, what you see here is your suppliers ranked highest to lowest in terms of risk score, and you can see that in the red column. The higher the number, the higher the risk. And then what you can see going across each of the columns are the different scoring dimensions for how we assess the suppliers. So in this particular example, we looked at the suppliers over part shortages, so delivery, financial risk, capacity, quality, transfer of work, and triggers. Now, each of these different dimensions has its own algorithm for how we assess the suppliers using a combination of internal and external data. And we'll work with your teams to make sure we're capturing the right methodology for assessing the suppliers across each of those different elements. Those scores then roll up into an overall risk score, and that's that short-term risk score that you can see here. Now, I know many of you on the call will typically manage your supply base more through a program lens as opposed to just looking at a supply list like this. So we typically develop a similar screen from a program lens, so you can filter between your different programs and see the risk on each of the programs that you have in there and see the suppliers that make up that program and what their specific risk score to that particular program is. One thing I would quickly call out is that the information on these pages is actually updated on a daily basis multiple times. So every time that you log on to the tool, what you see is the latest and greatest. So it really is a great way to collate all of that information across your organization into one place, so you're really viewing those suppliers holistically. Another feature that we typically develop is executive level reports. So here's an example of one such one. And what you can see here is a few different elements. So top left, you can see how your supplier base is broken out into different categories. So you can see suppliers that are on a watch list. You can see how many that you've got planning to exit, or how many you actually have a team out supporting from a recovery perspective. Other visualizations here, you can see how that score progresses over time. And then again, you can see that risk score by program. So you can really get a good idea on where you need to focus your resources and your attention to manage your organization's risk exposure. So the next thing that you're going to want to do after you've viewed the portfolio level risk is really start to drill down into some of these top suppliers and understand what's causing some of the scores that we see here. And for that, we have the company dashboard. So if you click on that button, it's going to open up a landing page such as this. Now, what you can see on this particular example is a few different elements. So top right, you can see the different scoring dimensions for how we assess the company. So you can see the delivery, finance, quality, again, as we saw on that original page. And here you have the double click for ability, so you can really start to drill into that data. So if you're interested in part shortages, you can see on this particular supplier how those shortages have trended over time and really start to understand some of that data in more detail. You can do similar things across the financials, quality, capacity. So really you can start to build out those different relationships and diagnose why this supplier might be having some challenges. Some other elements that it has is obviously the spend, bottom left, how that risk is developing over time. So is it getting better? Is it upticking? Actually one that you might want to keep an eye on. Another element that we have is the company log. And really this is incredibly helpful for when you go out to meet the company or there is an event that you want to record. So for example, imagine you went to go meet the CEO and you were discussing how they plan to build up their capacity, or you wanted to discuss some of the refinancing risk that you see through the financial element. What you can do here is log your particular comments on that supplier, and that's going to feed into this bottom right hand page here. And we find that this proves to be really useful for building up an overall picture of the supplier, being able to combine some of that data elements, but also some of those softer, more conversational insights. This can prove key when you want to take decisions around resourcing or potentially exiting, or to even maybe giving the company some more business. So having that evidence base is really critical. So once you've used this page to start to diagnose what is causing that risk at the supplier, the next thing that you're going to want to do is start to drive action to manage it. And that's where the action log comes in. So if you navigate to this, we'll just open up this screen here. It's going to open a page such as this. Now, what you can see here is all of the actions that have been allocated to your team to help manage that supplier risk, and they're shown in 3 different buckets. Your overdue actions, so these are the things which should have been complete, which haven't been complete, your upcoming actions, and then your complete actions. Now, we find this is a really powerful tool for being able to take some of those insights that you see on the company page and then really sharing those insights with your team and then getting them to investigate, getting them to come up with plans to mitigate and manage them and make sure those happen at pace and on a timely basis. So straight away, you can log on to this and see who hasn't met their deadlines, and then you can follow up and make sure what needs to happen is happening as soon as possible. Again, you can add new actions. So here you have the action page. You can specify which vendor, you can specify the type of action, what needs to happen, who needs to do it, when they need to do it by. And what this is going to do is it's going to send a email notification to the assignee, and it's going to tell them what they need to do, and then they can log into the tool and give updates on a regular basis for how they're doing against their deadlines, and then mark it as complete once that's done. So this is particularly useful for being able to manage your team over time, moving away from PowerPoints, where sometimes you move from week to week and things get lost in the decks gone by. This is a really easy way to track things and make sure nothing gets lost and your team feel accountable for delivering what they need to help manage your risk. So really that's a whistle-stop tour of our supply base recovery cockpit. As I mentioned at the very start, we like to make them customizable for the different clients that we work. So what you've seen today is just a flavor of some of the capabilities we like to deploy, but really we'll make it bespoke, working with you and your team to make sure we are helping to identify and then manage the supply chain risk within your organization most effectively.